All right, hi. So last year, a few months after around this time, I posted my Sheridan illustration portfolio that was accepted. And so I figured that I would go back and look at it like about a year later and really like assess like what the portfolio was and really to like critique and talk about my own portfolio, because I feel like that's the most important thing, because people take it and have been asking me like, oh, like this is exactly what they want, and it's like, well, no, they want different things from everybody. It's just how you present the requirements that will get you in. So I'm gonna talk about the do's and don'ts, I guess, of the Sheridan illustration portfolio. This is not for animation. People keep getting it confused. Animation and illustrations requirements are a lot different. So if you're here for animation, this ain't gonna help you at all, because they're completely different. Animation requires character design, character rotations, I think you have to draw hands for the portfolio, you have to draw a still life, and a storyboard. So this is not for animation for Sheridan. This is for illustration, which is more fine art and graphic designy. Not really. It's hard to explain. It's illustration. It's narratives. It's the stuff that animation is not, basically. So I'm going to start with the drawing test. So basically the drawing test is, I know they changed it. They changed a little bit of it for 2018, but for 2017's portfolio, there was, you have to do 3 figures, doing specific things, and then a figure and interior with tone. You had to do a view through a window, and then a still life that changed. So for the drawing test, looking at my first one here, which was the figure seated, and for the drawing test, you don't have to over-render them, just a simple shading to show form of and distinction of the figure and the background. You don't even have to draw that much of a detailed background. I just kind of drew what was around it. If I were to do it now, I would probably make the lines for the background a little bit lighter, but I think in this picture that I'm showing, I made the lines darker so I could scan it, and scanning it didn't really work, because they don't want the originals. You can hand in the originals if you don't want them back. I lost mine anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter, but if you want to scan it, make the lines dark enough, because if you're scanning them at Sheridan, the scanners fucking suck, so you're gonna want to make them darker. But anyways, so for the figures in the drawing test, you don't have to render them very much. You just have to make sure that they look like human proportions, and that you're able to draw humans sitting in a space that aren't looking too cartoonish, and you can't have color. It's just black and white graphite. It's not, it shouldn't take you that long to do. So the first one, the anatomy is all right. If I were to do it now, I'd probably add a bit of shading where the contact shadows are. I'd probably add a bit more like shading on the person itself, on the face. But overall, not bad. For the figure standing, like I said, you don't really have to add the background. I don't know why I added the background. I should have just suggested it a little bit more. I wish I would have shaded the person a little bit more. But overall, it's not bad either. Just make sure that your proportions are right. Make sure that the figure looks like it's standing or sitting on a plane. And for these ones, I think I got 5s out of 10 for them, which like isn't bad, but it's not good. It's like, yeah, you drew it, which, that's good enough for me, I guess. But it did lower my portfolio score, and I wish I would have gotten a better score, but you win some, you lose some. For the figure participating in everyday activity, I actually still really like this one. It's the drawing of my now roommate, putting on a coat, which I thought was a pretty cool activity for them to be doing. I don't think this is in the 2018 portfolio though, so I don't think you have to worry about this one. However, I still liked this one a lot. The everyday activity one was really fun to do. I think it was the funnest one, so I don't know why they took that out, but whatever. For the figure and interior with tone, I did it hatching in ink wash. I mean, I don't really have much to say about mine personally. I don't really like it that much. I think it got a 6, but I could be wrong. It was alright. Like, it's what they wanted. It's like, it's like I drew, someone sitting in an interior tone. Like, that's what it is. I wish I could have done the hatching a little bit better. The hatching is kind of wonky. as well as some of the ink wash is kind of wonky. So if you're doing ink wash, make sure you're just kind of careful. Make sure that your foreground is dark, like relatively dark. Your midground is like, a middle value, a few middle values, especially since you're emphasizing on a person in like a interior. And then your background is a bit lighter. So I did not do the best job in doing the spatial depth. However, I did succeed because it does look like he's sitting in somewhat of a space. So just make sure that you have the, like the spatial depth in your drawing. I don't know if that's still part of the requirements though, but future reference, I guess. The window drawing, I fucking hate this one. It looks like trash. I could not get a window drawing. It was so hard for me. I don't know why. It was so hard. I didn't work from photography, surprisingly. I did take a picture of where I was sitting just for later if I wanted to go back and like re-render it or whatever. But I did draw this from life. It looks bad. I don't like it. I wish I would have rendered it better. It just, if you're doing a window or a setting, make sure that it's 2-point perspective. Make sure that it isn't like flat. Make sure that it just looks like there's depth within the window and there's depth within the space before the window. So like the foreground, middle ground is where the window is, and then the background where the spatial depth really should be, where like the trees or like the houses are. Make sure that it looks like there's actual depth, and then it's not just like you're looking at a painting in a house. So the next one is still life, and the change to the still life. As long as you can draw proper objects, like make sure that your cylinders don't have pointy ellipses, and make sure that your boxes are on perspective right, and blah 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 blah. Everything should be fine. You don't have to over render it. I rendered mine. I recommend rendering it, making it look at least a little bit realistic. It's tedious. This one is just tedious. Especially coming up with like an original idea for the movement of the still life, or like the change. Mine is it doesn't change much. It just has like honeycombs on it. I had someone recommend to me to do like a different perspective, like have, like say if someone was like stepping on it, like have it zoom out and then have the still life be kind of fucked up. Like there's so many ways you can approach this. You don't have to do it from the same angle. Like it could be from a completely different angle, as long as it's the same still life having some kind of effect happen to it. Have the objects move around more or whatever, depending on like how creative you get with it. Don't just do like, oh, it got moldy. Like mine was kind of basic. Okay, so from the drawing test, I'm going to go to my portfolio of original work, and I'm going to discuss some things that I still like and I still think are very strong and that I would recommend to you, as well as critiquing things that I probably shouldn't have put in my portfolio that, might have either lowered my grade or just kind of like weren't useful to getting into the program at all. So my opening page was a drawing of me digitally looking kind of funny. Like it was kind of a silly, half serious, half silly drawing, but I still really like it. Like I'm really happy with how it turned out. It looks really good. Like it's a self-portrait. I really do recommend having a self-portrait at the beginning, like to be like, oh, this is me, welcome, this is my portfolio. So I recommend doing a self-portrait in whatever medium that you're most comfortable with, just to be like, this is my favorite medium, this is me, this is who I am, this is my portfolio, this is who you're looking at. So that's still a really good idea, a self-portrait. The next, I had quite a bit of life drawing. I've gotten so many comments like, wow, you had so many life drawings. Like, most of it is life drawings. It's like, yeah, a big part of first year illustration is life drawing and anatomy and portfolio for life drawing and learning, you gotta draw bones and muscles and hands and feet and bodies and learn how to do different styles. So yeah, a big part of the illustration portfolio is probably going to be either life drawing or life painting. That's just how it's going to be. And so I chose my favorite works. You don't have to do as many. I put a hell of a lot. I'd say at least have 3 or 4 life drawings in your portfolio. You can also do what I did in my second and fourth page, where I combined a bunch of them. So like for the first one, for my very first page, it was just my favorite life drawing, and it's still one of my like strongest life drawings to date. And I put that at the very front of my life drawing section, which I was like, this is the one I'm most proud of. They want to see like the best of the best, so I'm going to put this at the front and be like, hey, this is what I can do, which is what you should do. And then I have some reclining poses because I know that they'd like to see reclining poses. I put them all on one file, and then I printed that out. I printed that about, I think it's 9x12, the biggest size that the print shop at school can do. Don't spend too much money. Just get regular cardstock, or even just print it through those little printers that they have, depending on how big your portfolio size is. But yeah, definitely put some reclining poses in there. And then the next one I did gestures. I just put a couple of them. I just cut them and stuck them in. Gestures are very important as well. And then the next one after that, I put a portrait, which I didn't really need, so you don't have to put a portrait. And then I put some hands and feet and anatomy studies. I recommend doing maybe some bone studies or some muscle studies and putting them in there in place of some hands and feet, but definitely do hands and feet studies as well as anatomy studies. And then I have another life drawing. Like I said, you don't have to have as many life drawings as I did, just as long as you have some kind of maybe a reclining pose or a seated pose, some gestures, some longer poses, interesting poses, anatomy, whatever that you can come up with. And then I just put a bunch of life drawings at the back of my portfolio so they could pull them out, filter through them a little bit, and be like, oh, there's more. She can do different mediums, different whatever. Because it's interesting to look at people's life drawings, in my opinion. Next, I have the painting section, I believe. And I put a achromatic still life from my first year of VCA, which is the only year I did. So I think it was one of the first assignments that we had in VCA, and it was just the still life. I don't like it now, looking back at it. It's alright. I painted the metal object fairly well, but everything else is kind of shitty. So, I mean, at the time it was nice, and it got me into the program. So, put a still life acrylic painting in your portfolio. Do one. You don't have to be in Art Fundies or VCA or whatever to do a still life. Just try your best to do an acrylic still life painting and then put it in your portfolio, because it's very important to be able to show them, or at least do a still life drawing in some medium, because it's very important to show them that you can do still lifes, because that's a big part of what painting and your drawing class is going to be in the first semester. I have two life paintings, which at first I had one, and then I found that it went better if I had two of them, because they were on each one page in a section. So I was like, this looks better, and they complement each other, so I'm gonna put two life paintings. I recommend doing two or one. It's not a big deal if you just have one, but having two is oh yeah, she can do two different people, whatever. So yeah, it's just put people paintings in there. That's it. It doesn't have to be the best. Mine aren't the best. They're oh, you could tell it's a leg. You could tell it's an arm. As long as they can tell it's a person. Next, I have watercolor still life, which I highly, highly recommend doing, because you have a very important section in painting in first year where you do watercolors. And if it's a good watercolor still life, that will get your marks up, because watercolors, not easy and it's not difficult. It's kind of in the mid-grounds of oh, this is kind of challenging. And if you're able to properly render something in watercolor, it's kind of impressive, because especially if it's a still life and you're air quotes a beginning student, it's pretty impressive if you can do a heavily rendered watercolor still life. So definitely do one of those as well. The next one I have is the worst thing I have ever painted in my life. I don't know why I put it in. I wanted to do an architecture study, and I fucking hate it. It's so ugly. I never liked it. I was I'm just gonna put it in because it'd probably get them to be oh, she can draw buildings. Don't do that. Just don't do it. Unless you're good at drawing architecture or painting architecture, don't fucking do that. Don't do something that you don't like to do and suck at, and it looks like shit. Just don't put it in your portfolio. It looks bad. If it looks bad, don't put it in. If you don't like doing it, don't put it in. It's just don't do it. Yeah, that's my take on it. Next, I have a digital piece, or digital pieces. They all kind of fit together in the same color scheme. I recommend not putting too many digital pieces in your portfolio. Do 1 or 2 pages, just to be hey, I can do digital, by the way, because it's not a big part of first year, and the portfolio is to get into first year. So if it's all digital, they're gonna be well, we don't really care that much. They want to see a breadth of content. So, and then the next one is a gouache illustration. Make sure that you have more process work than I do. I only have a few of them with process work. Load this motherfucker up with process work. Just do it. It'll raise your grades so much, because they look for process work in every single class. Bring in your process work. Show me what you're doing so I can choose between this or that, just do an illustration with process work, and do a lot of process work. And if you don't have any for an illustration that you like, just bullshit some process work, you know? At least make it look like you tried. The next one is a project that I had in VCA. It has process work. It has a finished product. It's a nice rendered drawing of a cat and then a different version of it, which, you know, it's cool, I guess. I don't know. I don't have much to say. It's like, yeah, that's what it is. The next one is a painting of someone. I don't like it. It's not nice anymore, in my opinion. I don't like it. It's not very anatomically correct, but whatever. Do paintings of people, though. Like, stylized paintings. That's pretty cool. Just do painting of someone, you know. And the next one I have is digital landscapes. I only put them in because I was told to by a professor in illustration. They said, dude, these are great, put them in, you know, whatever. Next is a portrait. Like I said, make portrait paintings of people in rooms, you know, stuff like that. Alright, so the next one that I realized wasn't on my blog spot that I was going through was this hand illustration that I did. It was like a mechanical hand. And that is definitely a very important illustration piece that I did. I know they wanted to see like mechanical objects, so I decided to make some kind of robotic hand illustration that's being deconstructed with like lots of detail and wires. And I did it in gouache, and then I did the overlay on a mylar piece of mylar paper, which fucking sucked to put ink on because it took forever to dry, but I did it anyways, and the results were pretty cool, and I did a lot of process work for that as well. So if you can get around to doing some hand studies and maybe mix it up a little bit with another requirement, that would be fucking sweet. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say about this piece. Another piece I realized that wasn't on my blog spot for whatever reason was my deconstructed parfait digital piece that I threw in there, and I decided to bullshit some process work and just kind of put it in there to make it look like I did all this before I did it, which I technically kind of did, but I lost all the process work files, so I just kind of redid it. But yeah, that's a fun digital piece. It's a cool illustration. It's, you know, if you can do as many illustrations as you can, for the portfolio, that'd be really cool. Any illustration that you put in there, I recommend putting some kind of process work just to show that you tried to, you know, abide by the guidelines. And the next one is my thank you. Yeah, it's just me saying goodbye. It's alright. I wish I would have rendered it a bit more, but it was like the night before, and I was like, fuck it! And then my sketchbook, which I have a video, I can link it in the description. It's a video explaining, like, my portfolio sketchbook. So, yeah, thanks for watching, if you watch the whole thing. I know it's gonna be like 20 minutes, but it's really important that you understand that not every portfolio is the same, and not every portfolio that you'll see is exactly every single requirement that you'll have for the portfolio. So, like, different portfolios have different things that they like, and that it's all subjective, and, like, just try your best and put things that you're really proud of in, as well as things that are tailored towards the program. So do things that you're proud of, but also things that are tailored towards the program, and try to make the best of the situation. You know, like, I couldn't draw a lot of cartoons in my sketchbook, but I compromised and I found things that I like to draw from life. And I had fun with it anyways. So have fun with it, even though you have requirements. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Like, about a year later, it's not exactly a year, it's a couple months before a year. I think I got accepted in, like, March or something. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about it. Thank you so much for watching this if you did. And I hope you have a good time applying. And I hope you get in. Or at least try your best, you know? See you later.